We've already warmed 1 degree Celsius, and do you know what's happened since then? Here, let me tell you. We have had more food grown since then, which feeds people. We are able to producing fossil fuels keeps people's houses warm in the winter. That saves people's lives. People die in the cold.
Right.
This earth warming and carbon is actually healthy for us. It helps us to feed people. It helps keep people alive. It helps. The earth is more green than it was years and years ago, and that's because of the earth warming. That's because of carbon.
Climate scientists have spent decades warning Americans that man-made climate change is causing permanent damage to our environment. But far-right Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has a message for those concerned about the climate. You're welcome. You heard that right. Congresswoman Greene believes we ought to be thankful to big polluters for warming our planet out of the kindness of their heart. Greene shared her latest attempt at a political thought during a radio interview with Right Side Broadcasting Network's Brian Glenn. During that interview, Greene declared that climate change was, quote, actually healthy for humanity. That tells us two things about Marjorie Taylor Greene. First, she believes climate change is real, and second, she's still dumb as ever. Greene has some pretty out there ideas on just how a warming climate is healthy for humans. The planet has been able to produce more food, she says, and while Greene puts a warming planet in the win column, she also acknowledges that humans don't really have any way of turning off that climate change heat lamp once things get really toasty. And if Georgia Republicans like Greene think climate change is a blessing for farmers, they certainly aren't acting like it. Warmer winters are making it harder for Georgia farmers to grow the state's iconic Georgia peaches. And the University of Georgia reports that some farmers are being forced out of the industry entirely. That's thanks to climate change. They can't grow their normal crops, and they just don't have the money to buy the equipment to grow more tropical plants. That's the climate change Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks we should be thankful for. But Greene had more to share, and it only gets crazier. People die in the cold, Greene said, so using fossil fuels to heat our homes is actually saving more lives than the climate-related disasters are killing. That's a strange way to think about it, but in Greene's defense, this is likely the first time she's had any of these thoughts. Greene not only ignores the fact that we've developed renewable ways to heat homes in the winter, she goes on to claim that fossil fuels are better than other forms of energy, because in her words, the carbon they put out makes the Earth greener. Fossil fuels contain tons of carbon that finds its way into our atmosphere every time we burn things like oil and coal. For Greene, that climate reality laid the groundwork for one of her craziest statements, that the carbon released by polluters is actually healthy for you. And Greene has a good reason to convince her listeners that's true. According to ProPublica, America's worst industrial air pollutant zones are all in red states. But Greene isn't likely to find as many climate deniers on the right as she might have even a few years ago. A historic mega drought is scorching much of the Southwest, and locals who depend on that water are watching their futures dry up with every passing day. The National Weather Service predicts that those droughts could soon become massive wildfires. This is the reality Marjorie Taylor Greene can't let her audience see.
I've already asked all Utahns to conserve water by avoiding long showers, fixing leaky faucets, and planting water-wise landscapes. But I fear those efforts alone won't be enough to protect us. We need more rain, and we need it now. We need some divine intervention. That's why I'm asking Utahns of all faiths to join me in a weekend of prayer, June 4th through the 6th. By praying collaboratively and collectively, asking God or whatever higher power you believe in for more rain, we may be able to escape the deadliest aspects of the continuing drought. Please join me and Utahns, regardless of religious affiliation, in a weekend of humble prayer for rain.
As the world burns metaphorically, it's also crucial to keep in mind that in many ways, it is physically burning as well. The Colorado River is reaching perilously low levels, and it supplies water to 40 million Americans, and we have no plan to fix that. Droughts are sweeping the world, from Italy's historic risotto region to Somalia and Utah, and of course, our leaders have very little they are willing to do about it. One thing they are doing is praying.
So a report came out that I think we really all should have expected, and that is the fact that fire season is now year-round, unfortunately. This is one of the realities of climate change that we fundamentally have to face, and it demands from us specific actions that unfortunately leaders are simply not taking. First and foremost, our firefighting staff around the country is fundamentally not enough. We do not have enough firefighters across the country, and they are not getting a break, and they won't be getting a break anytime soon, especially considering the increasing likelihood of fires over time. Additionally, we have a huge forest management problem. The truth of the matter is that our forest management in the United States as it is today is pretty terrible, and there's a lot of things that we could actually learn from the indigenous folks that are currently treated like second-class citizens in the United States, because before colonizers came here and took all of this land, indigenous folks actually had a really dope setup for their farming practices because of the way that they did this sort of permaculture with intermingling specific types of trees in the forests and cultivating the forests. They were able to limit the risks of forest fires and produce tons of food just growing out in the environment in the wilderness. By using these strategies, they managed to make their communities not only safer from forest fires, but also more plentiful in terms of the availability of food. Learning that basic lesson of how to have a more healthy relationship with nature and rolling out a jobs program to teach people how to do that type of forest management could be a huge success for our economy. Not only could it help us reduce forest fires, but it would also create tons of jobs and improve the environment, which is really a benefit for everybody. But as this host on CNN points out, our response to climate change right now is largely being driven by the insurance market.
So yeah, this takes a whole new mind shift, and a lot of that will be sort of led by insurance markets, where they're redrawing the way cities are zoned. If they say, I'm sorry, it's too dangerous, it's too fire prone, you're going to have to cover your own risk. That will make people change their ways.
Which is very, very frustrating, because the truth of the matter is that we shouldn't have our decisions be based off of minimizing risk. We should actually be going the other direction, and we should be maximizing our positive impact on the environment. We should be actively replenishing what we have reduced. We should be replacing our fossil fuels with green energy. Because the truth of the matter is, as long as we have a risk management strategy, then all we will end up doing is trying to manage ever increasing risk. And while the insurance companies are doing some things in terms of putting some economic pressure on people to be more sustainable with the development of their housing and things like that, the truth of the matter is that a lot of developers are just getting around that by making everything more expensive. It just means that poor folks are being priced out of these areas instead of actually making these areas more sustainable.